Are you a sexy, indulgent musician suffering from consistent long hours, crippling self-doubt, and constant disappointment? Well, do we have a show for you?
Sex, good, and disappointment. Sex, good, and disappointment. Sex, good, and disappointment.
Welcome to Sex, Drugs, and Disappointment, a bi-weekly deep dive into what it takes to be a healthy and successful musician in the modern industry. My name is Melody Kaiser.
And I'm Dustin Williams.
And we are both full-time musicians and creative entrepreneurs. And today we are sharing our wildest show experiences.
Hell yeah.
This is going to be a really fun episode, I think.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. So when it comes to live performance, there's always room for something to go wrong. There's room for error.
Always.
Always. Playing a live show is just unpredictable. And we've definitely had some good experiences, some terrible experiences, and some very weird experiences.
Mostly very weird.
Mostly very weird, yeah. So we're going to share those today with you, and yeah, it should be fun.
It's going to be great. All right, Dustin, you go first. What is one of your wildest show experiences? You've actually been playing live for a really long time, so you've got several. So this is going to be really interesting to hear some of yours.
All right, so let's see. I think I'll start off tame first, and we'll just kind of work our way up. So anyone listening who is from the Atlanta area is probably familiar with Northside Tavern, which is, it's kind of a legendary venue here in the city. It's like a blues, kind of a blues dive bar is the way I would describe it. And
it's rough.
It can be pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. It's a great venue, but it's rough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, just looking from the outside, it's got this cinder block building look. It's got bars on the windows. It's not necessarily in a rough part of town, but it looks rough.
Yeah, the building itself definitely looks rough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so like a lot of you like 20 to 30 something like professional people like who live in like maybe in the city, Buckhead, Midtown, or whatever. That's kind of like a hangout spot for a lot of them. Usually people are just happy to be there to enjoy music and have a good time. But every once in a while, you get some people that are a little more on the aggressive side.
Always. People are drinking and doing drugs.
Yeah. People do some wild stuff.
Yeah.
I remember this time, this relatively recently, probably within the past 6 months, we were playing there. It was me. I was playing with Truett, who actually I'm wearing his hoodie right now. So I mentioned him in one of the other episodes, blues rock guitar player from Atlanta, amazing songwriter, great friend of mine. And so it was me and him, and then Dylan, the drummer for Hey Dreamer.
Right.
And also the drummer with Truett. So Dylan was there, and we were rocking out, doing our thing. And this one really, really drunk guy comes up. He actually comes up to a percussion player first, to Tony. And I can't remember what Tony said exactly that he said, but it was something along the lines of like, I'm not really vibing with what you guys are doing. Like basically like asking us to stop playing.
Oh God.
Like already hilarious, because it's like, okay, I mean, yeah, fair, dude. Subjective opinion.
Well, also, though, most people would just leave if they don't like the show, not ask the band to stop.
Right.
It's weird. That's just weird.
So it starts off that way, which is already like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he's got like a inflated ego thing going on.
Yeah.
I don't like this. Can you please stop?
Can you just stop? So I guess he wasn't happy about the fact that we didn't stop or start playing the stuff he wanted to hear. So at one point, he lobs a beer can, and thankfully it was like mostly empty.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, if it was full.
Right, yeah.
That would be awful.
Ooh, that would
It's
be
a
bad.
brick.
Yeah, dude, for real. Yeah, it could really hurt somebody. But he lobs this like mostly empty beer can, and it hits Dylan like in the head or in his drum set or something. Anyway, it's just like, what the hell? And he's like, this dude's in the back just kind of like shouting at us, and he can't really be heard because we're playing loud and there's like people, making noise, but we can see him. I'm looking at him. And it was awesome though, because Truett doesn't play with that kind of stuff. So like he figured out who it was. He just like got the bouncer's attention. He's like, pointed at the guy, did this, like, point towards the door, get him the fuck out of here. And he did. He fucking tossed the guy out. Wow. It was awesome. Yeah.
That's
And
crazy though.
yeah, it was wild. And you know, like I said, it's rather tame compared to other stuff I've been through, but still like it's like a scene out of what is that? Is it the Blues Brothers where they're like throwing beers at the cage?
Or Roadhouse. Did you
Is
ever
it
see Roadhouse?
Oh, I've not the whole thing actually. I've seen it
I
on
think
TV.
in both
clips.
movies there's a cage involved. Have you
Yeah.
ever played behind a cage?
No.
Yeah, I haven't either. That's like a bad sign.
Yeah,
if I
it
got
is.
to a venue like on a tour and they had like a fence in front of the stage, I'd be like, this is gonna be
It's a bad
wild.
sign. Yeah, for any of those getting out into touring, if you show up to the venue and there's a cage, like maybe don't.
Yeah, maybe be like, oh, sorry, our drummer's sick. We're gonna have to drop this one. You don't want to get stabbed during load in or
Yeah,
something.
right.
That's crazy. I don't think I've ever been hit by anything. I don't think I've ever had anything thrown at me on a stage. Have you? Or was that the only time?
That's the only time that I can recall.
Yeah.
I've definitely like, yeah. I mean, I've had like all the time, especially at like wild bars. People come up and you know, like drunk college girls or like just out of college. And I'm not saying it's just girls, but in my experiences, happen to be girls a lot. Where
Sure.
they'll come up and like touch my bass and like ooh, look at me, I'm touching your bass. And I'm like, get the fuck off of me. Like,
Yeah.
you know, oh, it's creepy. It's like, hey, girls could be creepy too, guys. Like,
Well, I
you know?
guess that segues. I guess I'm gonna start with like one of my bad stories because this
Okay.
actually happened to me. So
Mhm.
I was playing this show at like this local. It wasn't in the city of Atlanta, but it was like the metro area. It was
Mhm.
like it wasn't. I guess it could be like not a subdivision, but what do you call it? Like
was it like in the perimeter still?
no,
or-
it was OTP.
Okay.
And for those of you that don't know, that's out of the perimeter in Atlanta. Very different vibe there.
Yeah.
But so anyway, I was playing this like cover gig at like this bar, and this guy just like wouldn't leave me alone. He kept like coming up to the stage and like touching me, which is like, you know, I mean, there's like different vibes for it. You know, that was kind of a recent video that everybody was talking about, like Adam Levine like pushed a fan off, and
Yeah.
everybody was like, if I paid $500 for a ticket and like he acted like that, I would be offended or like
Yeah.
whatever. But it really was like a little jarring because these people didn't pay $500 and he
Right.
wasn't doing it in like a, oh my God, I love you, give me a hug
Mhm.
one time kind of way.
Right.
And also I didn't have security to be like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
So
right.
like those
Yeah. You are
the
the
circumstances
security.
were different, right? So anyway, he kept like touching me and just being weird. And anyway, what ended up happening is he like kept trying to put like this like hat on my head,
Mhm.
and it was like one of those weird like Ted Nugent cowboy hat kind of situation, like the
Yeah.
straw,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they
yeah.
like are like painted and they look all like badass,
Yeah.
you know, like but like
That's subjective.
yeah. But it was one of those deals.
Totally.
And like I have like a weird thing, especially about like people like touching my face or my hair,
I mean,
and
yeah.
like especially with like hats, right?
You know, call me crazy. I don't think it's weird.
Is that not weird?
I don't think it's weird.
Because some people don't care. Like some people will just like put on like hats in stores and stuff. But like that's not me,
Mhm.
you know, because I'm like, people are gross. Like I don't want to get a hat until I like make sure it doesn't have like lice in it.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Like
Mhm.
that sounds like a bad time, getting lice. And so like anyway, this guy like wouldn't leave me alone, and then he like put this hat on my head, and like I was super uncomfortable, but also like pissed off.
Mhm.
But I didn't want to be like, you know, fuck you, dude, like blah blah blah, and like ruin it for everybody else.
Yeah.
So I was uncomfortable, and so usually what I do when I'm uncomfortable is I make like jokes and like ha 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 ha, whatever. And this really wasn't a joke, but to kind of not be like fuck you, dude, I gave him his hat back,
Mhm.
and I was just like, wow, I hope I don't have lice now. Which in retrospect probably was not the right thing to say, but I was like 17. Okay, so like
Yeah.
I
Well, he was
wasn't.
an adult man,
I
like touching a
wasn't- yeah.
17-year-old girl. Like,
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
But like anyway, he like throws this like temper tantrum,
Mm-mm.
right? He's like a grown man baby at this point. He like grabs up his girlfriend aggressively. Like that's probably not a good relationship, but
Right,
whatever. I'm
right.
not here to judge. He like grabs her up and they're like flicking off the stage and they leave. So then the next day I get this like call from the guy that owns the venue, and he was like, hey, do you know what happened last night? Like, you know, we got like a 1-star review on Yelp, which is like a really big deal for a restaurant
Yeah,
and bar,
it's
you
not
know?
good.
And so they were trying to figure it out. And he was like, they said like, that little girl on stage doesn't know who she was talking to. Like, I'm in a tribute band. And I was just like, well, then you should know even more. Like, don't be a dick. Like, don't touch people when they're on stage. Like, basically, in effect, like, say that didn't even bother me, right? Mm-hmm. Don't make everything about you.
Right.
Like, if somebody's on stage, don't go up there, like, touching them and trying to, like, show off that you're, like, this big badass because you're in a tribute band. And I'm not saying that tribute bands are, like, bad. Like, I have several friends in tribute bands. But, like, that doesn't give you the excuse to be an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, to be in a tribute band, it's like, that's really never be an asshole, number one.
Yeah, right.
But, like, using that as, like, she didn't know who she was talking to. I'm like, you're just proving how much of, like, a man baby you really are.
Right, yeah,
you
totally.
You sound like such an asshole right now, you know?
Child, yeah, dude.
So, anyway, that was kind of a tie-in to that. I mean, have you ever had experiences with that? Like, people excessively like touching you, not leaving you alone, other than just like touching your bass, like maybe after a show or something, like people didn't, because we deal with a lot of drunk people, right, in shows, especially on our level, obviously, because we're not playing like amphitheaters and shows where there's like
security,
and you don't have that like wall, right? Like the wall is broken when you're playing clubs and bars, so like you're constantly, and it's almost expected, like you do interact with like everybody, like all the audience. And so like a lot of times they are super drunk. And I mean, let's just be honest, like drunk people do a lot of times get really inappropriate.
Yeah.
And it's not even like normally they wouldn't do that. I don't want to say it's not their fault because it is their fault, but like, like even people that you wouldn't expect it, I guess.
Yeah. Alcohol will definitely mess you up, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if I honestly have too many experiences where I've been like straight up like groped.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I think the reality is it doesn't happen to men as often. I mean, it does happen, but I think like the thing is like some men welcome it. So it doesn't really have the same kind of like stigma and, for obvious reasons. But, I mean, I've definitely, it's happened a little bit. Again, like, people coming up and like touching me while I'm playing or touching my instrument. I mean, people, well, like you mentioned the whole thing with, was Adam Levine?
Yeah, that was the recent one that I saw.
Right. And yeah, it was kind of polarizing because a lot of people were like, oh, what a doucher. And it's just like,
totally.
Well, like, first of all, I think, and I'm not saying I'm like a fan of him on like a musical or personal level. I mean, he's a great singer, I guess, but like, I have no opinion on him personally, but, I think he had every right to do that for sure.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. Like it's because people forget, I think, like when you're, like you said, when you're on stage, like it's almost like some people think you're now a zoo exhibit, something they can go and touch and pet and, interact with. And you're there for my entertainment. So I can do whatever you want or whatever I want, and it's like, no, actually, like, first of all, the venue hired me, not you.
Right.
And second of all, if this was on the street, like this would be completely different, like,
right.
You know what I mean?
I did. And I saw on TikTok, like when the Adam Levine thing happened, people were comparing it to apparently the same thing happened all the time to like Michael Jackson. Mm-hmm. And Michael Jackson was always like welcoming to the fans.
Yeah.
And, but also like, I mean, let's just be honest. Michael Jackson had a completely different experience and probably like learned a lot of things to be okay that were not okay.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Like,
totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he probably thought that was normal, but like it's not.
Well, I mean, he got completely taken advantage of as a child.
Right.
So like from the get-go, his understanding of like what's okay and what's not, like you said, was probably quite skewed.
Yeah, I think so. So like I don't even feel like that's a fair comparison.
Well, not to mention the fact that like even if he was okay with it and he didn't have the background that he had, like, then that's up to the artist. And, maybe it's really kind of on the artist to be like, hey, if you want to come up, like come up, but.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, we don't have to like super get into it, but it's dangerous to perform,
Yeah.
Like people are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're like on a stage, people want to be with you or they want to be you or they get jealous. I mean, not like on our level, but like at that level, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I have seen it on our level too.
Yeah.
Like I've been to gigs where there was a woman, actually one of your gigs with Truett, there was a woman who was really into you guys, and her boyfriend like was not okay with it.
Oh, really?
You remember that?
No.
Okay.
Where-
I'm not
which-
going to say the venue.
Okay.
But,
Yeah. You can tell me later.
yeah, but you know, it was like a really big deal. He like completely showed his ass and like stormed out and
Like
was
he mooned us?
yelling. No.
That would be hilarious if
Sorry,
he did, though.
no, that would be pretty great.
Just drop trowel and it's just like,
I feel
fuck
like
you.
that's usually more funny than
Yeah.
offensive. So,
Right.
but anyway, yeah, I think that's it.
Well, that's a good point. The danger thing. So that reminds me of another story.
Okay, let's go.
I was playing a cover gig, and it was somewhere in Tennessee, I think, like closer to Chattanooga. It was pretty quick, or maybe Knoxville. I don't know. It was a shorter drive.
Okay.
It was very late. Like it was like a 10 o'clock start time, kind of like North Side. So, you know, very, very late. Definitely a party crowd. It's one of those venues that it's during the daytime. It's like a country, like billiards bar, and then at night it becomes like a hip hop club. So
There are a lot of those in Atlanta.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
tons of those. Yeah, so like the clientele completely flips, and like it's definitely a different vibe. But like drunk people are drunk people no matter what. So
Right.
like, you know, it's not really that different, other than just like what they're playing over the speakers.
Right.
That's really the only thing. But for this show, Bianca came with me, and we. You know, we get there, we load in, get all set up, whatever. She found a table, put her stuff at it, and then we're just kind of like waiting for the show to start. I think we ordered food, so we're just kind of chilling. And then, kind of like, I guess it was when we got on stage, she realized like all her stuff had been moved, and thankfully nothing stolen. But you know, she was kind of like upset by it, because if you like found a table and then somebody just moved your shit, like you'd probably be a little like, what the fuck,
Right.
you know? But she didn't like really raise a stink about it. And she's like, she asked the person like, hey, did you move my stuff? And they're like, I don't know if they responded or what they said exactly, but she just kind of like brushed it off, sat down. And so recently too, she had just put in, Bianca had just put in twists, like braids, really long braids.
Mhm.
And she was still getting used to them, I guess. And like, you know, was like kind of moving her head around, trying to like, you know, when you swing your hair all
Yeah.
majestic like. And I guess it like hit the girl in the face a couple times, the girl that had moved her stuff. So there was already an animosity, and now it was like, oh, you keep hitting me in the face. So
Right.
eventually, I guess the girl like turned and was like, are you going to keep hitting me in the face with your hair? And she was like, whoa, like, and became this thing, and they were like arguing. And meanwhile, we're playing. So I'm kind of like on stage, like just like looking at this
Yeah, that's
situation
never
happening.
good.
And
Yeah.
of course, yeah, I felt like kind of helpless. But then we took a break, and B was like fuming, and you know, me and a couple of bandmates were like talking to her, and then we came back in, and it just like exploded, and she was like, because the girl kept pushing her, like the girl definitely kept pushing B, and finally she was just like, you know, this is like fuck you basically, and it became like this, you know, kind of argument, and I was just sitting there again on stage, just like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do if this breaks out into a fight? Like, I know there's a bouncer there, and I'm sure he's a big dude. I'm sure he'll stop it soon,
Right.
but like, what's going to happen? And they didn't fight, and it was fine. And like, you know, I was definitely really upset, kind of upset with B too, because I was just like, why did you press the issue? Like, you could have just walked away, you know?
Yeah.
But it's you know, there's a lot of sides to the story. So it's not like if I was in her shoes, maybe I would have felt different, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, so all that to say, like, there was almost a fight. It could have been dangerous, but I found out later after the gig, I was talking to the guy who booked it, and he was like, yeah, you know, this can be kind of a rough place. Like, this definitely, shootings happen here quite a bit. And I was like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah, we could have gotten shot.
we could have gotten shot over like braids. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
what? And so I was a little upset, because I was like, dude, like, you could have at least told me. And maybe he didn't, because he didn't want me to be like, actually, I can't do the gig,
Yeah.
you know. And I might have. to
I
be
mean,
honest.
I've played some venues where like there had been recent shootings,
Mhm.
and that's always, you know, pretty scary. Actually, I remember, this is like a really quick story, but when the Masquerade in Atlanta first moved from the old location to the new location in Underground. I was like, I don't know, like 17 or 18. And my band had a show there. And this was back when you made posters and dropped them off at the Masquerade. They don't really do that so much anymore, I don't feel like. I feel
so
like
digital now.
Yeah, now everything is kind of. But anyway, so I had never been to Underground Atlanta. And for people who don't know much about Atlanta or the Atlanta area, like Underground's one of those things that's like, it was really, really cool in the 70s and then it got really bad.
Yeah.
In the like 80s and early 90s, and then they redid it for the Olympics and it was awesome again, and then it like got really bad again. So they're in the process of trying to redo it now, and I think the Masquerade moving there has actually helped a lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because it's just traffic down there. But at this point in time, the Masquerade had just moved there and it was still pretty rough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I like kind of knew that, but like didn't really know that. So anyway, I didn't know that there's like an easy way to get to the Masquerade now. Like there's like a side entrance and it's like pretty short and all that stuff.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
So yeah, so I like parked in like the underground parking deck and like, you know, paid to park, whatever. And basically had to walk through the entirety of Underground
right.
to get to the Masquerade.
Yeah.
Which was like really scary because it's like dark as crap down there. I mean, it's underground, obviously, but like the lights were out, like you know,
or they're,
every like
dim and
every
old.
other thing was like working and it was like flickering, you know,
Straight
so
out of a horror movie.
Yeah, totally. And like you can hear people down there, but you couldn't really see them because they were like in the shadows, and I'm sure a lot of them were like homeless and you know, all of that kind of stuff. So that was super scary, and it could have been a lot worse. But kind of where I was going with it is the night before we did our show, we had sold like, I mean, not a crap ton of tickets, but like 30 or 40 tickets, I remember. And then somebody got stabbed in Underground the night before our show. Oh and so like nobody came. We actually had to give away some tickets to some homeless people out in the
just to get people in the door. Wow.
Which I don't even know if the Masquerade really appreciated because it was just like a bunch of homeless people in their building. But
yeah, well, at least they got to go inside for a little bit.
Yeah, they were
You know?
super about it.
Yeah.
Except for one guy. This is my fault to not even think about this or consider it. But there was this one guy that was like, yeah, I'll come. Like, I'm going to give the other ticket to my friend. I'm going to go get him. And then like 10 minutes later, we walked back around and he was like scalping him.
Wow, that's so
I was
funny.
like, nobody's gonna want to come to this show, dude. Like,
Did you talk to him about it?
No.
That was.
I mean, at that point, like, what are you gonna do? He was trying to make some money.
No,
and
I
get
mean,
what he
that's
actually
fine,
wanted,
right.
you know. But anyway, that's kind of a, you know, that has happened to me where like people didn't come to the show because something bad happened at the venue, you
Right.
know, like right before. So, and that had nothing to do with the Masquerade, by the way. It was just the location that it's in now. But
when you're in a city, that's just part of the game.
right,
You know?
yeah. The Masquerade is a great venue. We're actually playing there on Monday.
We are. Yes,
So,
yes. I'm
and
excited.
we're filming this before Thanksgiving, so it's actually Monday the 21st. But so we love the Masquerade. Don't want to say anything bad about them, but stuff like that does happen.
Does happen, yeah, for sure.
For sure. Well, I have a funny one. Kind of unrelated to anything bad, but it is kind of a crazy experience that I've had at a show.
Okay.
It was like a private party, right? Which as musicians, we love private events because
Yeah.
it's like a really cool way to like actually connect with like a specific group of people, and they're really fun, and people are just so nice when you do private events.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
love private events.
And not that it's like about the money, but usually private events opens up more opportunity to sell merch and like
Right.
or make tips or something because you're interacting with people, so they kind of believe in you or like invest in you a little bit more.
Sure.
So like they're often, this is a side note, they're often used for like anchor dates on like, you know, DIY tours where it's like, okay, well, we're going to play like 6 venues that are going to pay us $20, but then we'll
Right.
pay this one private show that'll pay us $500, and now we can like afford to do this.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. So private shows are amazing.
Yeah.
And this one was actually a really cool private show. So the guy owned a forklift company, right? And he obviously was really good at it because his house and property were like beautiful. And like this party was like legit. Like I remember like there were like canoes like full of beer. Like it was
That's
like
canoes. That's
it
so
was-
random.
But it was like really nice, like wood, nice canoes. Like it
Oh,
was
shit.
cool. I
Okay.
was like, it sounds like weird, but it was like pretty legit.
No, that's dope. I like it.
But anyway, as part of the show, he had like built this like super cool stage. It was like really high and, you know, whatever. But he was like, what if like we tried to like make it like really cool and not like pyrotechnic, but like special effects, right? He was like, so what if I get like a forklift? I'll take the safety bar off. And
Yeah, that's a great idea.
right. And you'll get on it playing guitar. Mind you, it was the song that I always did with a cover band. It was like showboating, but I always played the guitar behind my head to start this song. It was Sweet Child of Mine.
Nice.
Because it's easy.
Because you got
to do behind your head. Yeah. It's only in one position. So like people are like, whoa, but it's like, yeah. So anyway, I was going to do that behind my head on a forklift while it went in the air like 40 feet and then it would come back down. That was the basic idea. And I was like, okay, so we did like a test run, right? And like I had like the safety strap or whatever that kind of like locks you in. It like was on my waist basically. And that way if I did lose my balance, which is very possible because forklifts are very shaky.
It's not exactly meant for people.
Yeah, and I'm also like have like a big weight behind my head, which also throws off your center of balance. So like, you know, really a good idea. It would at least catch me from dying. I would probably still get hurt, but I wouldn't die. So anyway, we did like a test run and it was great. Everything was fine. I felt good about it. So anyway, we're in the middle of the show. And at this point we had already been playing like probably an hour in. And he's like, okay, like, let's do the full run. And, you know, he had been like drinking and like having fun and stuff. And so I go to like get in the forklift, right? And he's like, oh, I was kidding about the like harness thing. He was like, we did that for your mom. I'm not going to make you. He's like, I'm not going to make you. Because keep in mind too, I was like 16 when this happened or something. Like 17 maybe. No, I was probably 16. And I was like, okay. Because at this point, like, it was already a thing. Like, I was already kind of in it. So I, like, got in this forklift with no safety bar and
no harness,
put the guitar behind my head. And if you watch the video, there is a video on YouTube. If you can find it, you could probably just look up my name and it would be on the list of stuff. Somebody filmed it and, like, put it on YouTube. But, I am extremely still. And I'm very scared.
Because you're like, what, 40 feet in the air or something?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
above the stage.
Yeah.
And the stage was pretty big. So it's probably closer to like 45, 50 feet in the air. Yeah, totally would have died.
I mean, yeah, that's 2-story house easily.
And also like, you know, forklifts, I didn't really realize. And he had been like drinking and like,
a little wobbly,
partying and stuff. So like it kept like, if you watch the video, you'll see it kept like stopping. And every time it would stop, it would like sway. And that's super scary. Yeah, it was like pretty scary. I felt no safety at all. That is why when you go to see like Pink and stuff, everything is super like OSHA certified. And like she is like 100% strapped in. This was like the redneck equivalent of that. And like literally I probably could have died. And it was really scary. And when I got on the ground and I like told my mom after the show, like we didn't have like the harness, she was pissed.
Oh yeah.
She was like, what? Why did we even do like the safety thing earlier? Like that shit made her really, really mad.
Yeah. If I were a parent, I'd be fucking furious.
Yeah, because like I totally could have died. It would have been in front of a like large crowd of people.
Yeah. They'd be
I would have gone splat.
It would have been a news story that probably everyone listening would have heard about.
Yeah, I would have been doing this from a wheelchair for sure if I survived it all.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah, so that was kind of crazy. You know, so if you hire somebody for a private party, just
don't put them on your forklift.
Yeah, the pyrotechnics should be limited.
Yeah.
Unless you're certified. But see, he was certified in forklifts. He just, I guess, didn't give a shit this day about safety. He's just like, we're just gonna go for it. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just like, all right. Ugh. But anyway, that was pretty scary.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't think I've ever really been at risk on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like there's some moments where like, I mean, just quick side stories where like, you know, I had like one time when I was a kid, I had the like probably 16 or 17. I had the flu like really, really bad, but I played a show anyway, which, bad idea for so many reasons, but very dizzy and like nauseous. And like at one point I bumped into my guitar player and just like ate shit on the ground. It was just like laying there, like still trying to play the song, and like, it was fine. And then on Warped Tour, which I did with the Silver Comet was the name back at the time. The Sagas became the name of the band later. But on Warped Tour, we did Arizona date, and it was like 120 something degrees outside that day. Like it was fucking insane. And
And you had the flu?
No, so it wasn't
something?
a flu. It was like heat exhaustion, basically. I was just like super dehydrated.
That's
didn't really
happened to
feel.
me.
Yeah, it happens really easily, and like in any environment, but especially like out in Arizona,
Yeah.
And so like we played the show, and I was very still and just kind of like barely made it through. But like I was like walking around, around in the venue, because like if you ever been to a massive festival, something like Warped Tour or Bonnaroo or something where there's multiple stages, like it's like, like a mile or two, like square miles of just like, property. So this was like in a fairgrounds, like amphitheater, whatever. And maybe a stadium of some sort, or I don't know, but I was like walking around like kind of delirious and like puking in trash cans every like 5 minutes, just like finding a trash can. And I didn't realize like what was going on. I thought maybe it was food poisoning or something. And then thankfully, one of I think it was just a Warped Tour staffer, like somebody from production, happened to walk by and see me and realize like something was up, and, brought me back to production. So I don't even remember who it was. So whoever that was, thank you.
Yeah, that's no joke.
Yeah.
I mean, that can be really, really serious and deadly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Heat stroke can kill you super quick.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
I mean, I don't think I've ever been like that close to like really having true heat exhaustion, but I mean, I've definitely played shows like outdoor festivals where like I would say like, oh, well, I've still got to dress cool, and I would wear like basically weather inappropriate clothes. Like I would
Right.
still wear a jacket or something, and it's like 104 degrees outside or something, and I'm like jumping around and singing, and like it's just been bad.
Just you're
Like, I
drenched afterwards.
yeah, but you just starting to not feel well,
Yeah.
But usually in most of the stuff that I've done, I was always the singer. So like as far as like having like the flu and stuff, I've very rarely have I ever had to cancel, but I usually have to cancel because of like the congestion, and you
Right,
can't do your
yeah.
job properly. Like if I was just the guitar player, I would probably still show up and just give it my best. But with singing, like your body is your instrument. So
Right.
when your body's not well, it's really hard to like fake that.
Oh God, yeah.
So I haven't necessarily had like been sick. I did though. Okay, so this is kind of crazy. So there was this one show I was playing with a cover band, and it was in this bar that is not there anymore, but it was one of those bars basically like you were talking about earlier, like somebody had been shot there before, and it was like kind of that whole situation.
Yep.
But anyway, it was actually my brother and our sound man, because I played music with my brother. And they were putting up a lighting truss. And so for those of you that don't know, the truss is like that like metal bar system that has like the zigzag patterns that hold lights. It shows like everybody I think has seen them, but they may not know what they're called.
Yeah.
And obviously those are metal, just the truss itself is metal, and depending on what it's made out of, but like they're usually fairly heavy. It's like really good ones I think are titanium or steel or
Yeah. So yeah, they're gonna have some weight to them.
yeah, not as much the titanium, but like
Still.
I mean, it's still metal,
Yeah.
right? And then, just the lights themselves. Like once you get, this one probably had like 30 or I would say like 20 to 30 lights on it, which is pretty heavy. I mean, you're getting up there,
Yeah,
especially because it had like lasers and stuff like that. And those would come in big metal boxes, basically.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't even want to guess how much it was. It took 2 grown men to pick it up.
Easily, it's got to be easily 80 to 100 pounds then.
Yeah. I mean, it like what we would have to get on each side, and like it took 2 grown men to pick it up.
Yeah.
So it was pretty heavy. And anyway, for some reason, it extended it all the way up to like, I think its max was like 20, 25 feet or something. Like, and that was from the tip top to the base
To the
of
ground,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but they extended it before they opened the legs. So they're like trying to open the legs while it's fully extended
Oh my gosh.
in the air, which obviously is like a bad idea. But then
Yeah.
I had a bad idea too, because I saw it start to come down, and instead of like running away from it, I like put up my hands like I was gonna fucking catch it or something.
Oh, Jesus
which was like a
Christ.
really bad idea,
Yeah,
obviously.
totally.
But in the moment, it just like
It
happened.
was just a reaction, yeah.
And I just like crumbled under this truss. Like it just like
Oh my God.
I didn't even catch it at all. I mean, it hit my hands. My hands crumbled. It hit my head. It hit me in the head. And then I just like fell to the ground and was like
Jesus.
under it. And like my mom yelled because she was there, and she was like, "Oh shit!"
Freaking
like,
out,
You know,
yeah.
that was pretty. It was pretty brutal to watch. Apparently, and it really hurt. But anyway, I was fine. Like I started not feeling well shortly after.
Yep.
And like I like was like, I need to go home and like lay down for a few minutes. So I like drove home, and now like in retrospect, I like probably had a concussion.
Yeah.
Because like
Totally.
everything started getting like, I didn't feel well. I was like swimmy headed. Like it
They were
just
fuzzy.
yeah,
and-
it just felt like weird.
Yeah.
And like I probably most definitely had a concussion.
That's
but like
terrifying.
but
That's
like
so
I didn't go
scary.
to the doctor about it. And so like I just went home and like laid down a minute. I like, you know, drank some water, and then I went back to the show and we played that night. But that was pretty wild. Like that's probably I'm sure it looked dramatic from
Right.
the
Yeah,
outside.
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean that happened. So, you know, I have played shows with concussions, I guess.
Apparently, yeah. Didn't realize it at the time.
Right? I know. Yeah. So I haven't played that many where I've had like the flu or anything. But
Pro tip: don't play a show when you have a concussion.
I mean, it probably wasn't a great show in retrospect. But you know, I mean, there is that thing in show business, so like the show must go on.
Right.
Like that really is a thing. There is the standard of that.
Definitely, and I think to a degree, yeah, it should. The show does need to go on, but I think when it starts getting to the point where your health is at
You're
risk,
concussed.
yeah, then maybe
You're
it's
like
time.
slurring your words.
Yeah. I mean, but you hear about it all the time, you know, like people pushing through some really like bad things that they probably shouldn't be pushing through just to make the show happen, or
Yeah.
you know, like yeah. I mean, but that's like, you know, I mean, even just on like a simple level, that's why like I always carry backups, you know, for
Yeah.
gigs and like stuff like that. 'Cause,
Well, this doesn't have
you
to do with injury, but what was that story you were telling me that time where like basically like you went to like Europe or something, and like when you got there, like all of your shows canceled on you?
Oh, okay, yeah. So this was when the Silver Comet, which was the band that did Warped Tour 2012, we a couple years later we kind of more like split up more for real, and it was me and the singer who like went separate ways from the other guys, and we had just founded a record label between me and him and our manager, and we like basically we got an investment, and you know we created the label, and we were going to use that to fund some touring, some recording. And so we decided it was PK who brought up the idea first, I believe, and he was like, you know, I've been doing some research and looking into it, and you know, like Jimi Hendrix, like Kings of Leon, he probably had a couple others that he listed off, like
Right.
all these groups, you know, like they were having a hard time making it anywhere in the US, so they decided to go to England and try it there, and they blew up for whatever reason. And hi Darla. So we said, all right, let's try that. Like, let's, you know, do something different and new. It'd be fun, and you know, try it out. And so this was, you know, I don't even know what time of year this was, but I want to say it was like early spring or maybe even like winter, like midwinter or something. So it could have been around January. Anyway, that's not the point. So we got our tickets. We hired a booking agent overseas, and we're like 2 weeks out getting ready for the trip. And we reach out to the guy and we're like, hey, how's like show booking going? We haven't really heard much from you. We just kind of want to see like where we're at. So we can plan, other shows if we need to.
Right.
And basically he was like, yeah, I've only really been able to get you one gig. And we had booked our tickets for like 2 months. So we were supposed to be touring for 2 months and had like one show. And we were just like, oh my God. But we couldn't get rid of the tickets now because they were so expensive. And it was just like, all right, we got to make it happen. So we went over and there's like so much about this tour alone, so many stories tour stories is another episode for sure we could do. That's like its whole other thing because man, have I got those. So we get there and I think it was like in the middle of the World Cup too. So there's like a lot of people out and about once we get into the city of Manchester is where we arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And so we knew, okay, we don't have any shows except for this one, and that's like in the middle of our tour in a small town called Blackburn, England. And so we basically just like took out the guitar and started busking, and we walked around the streets. And so it was like 8, 9, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and we're just like walking around the streets, like playing music, like not even with the case open, just like walking around. I think I had brought an American flag bandana and I tied it to my guitar. So it would be like, yes, we're American. Come talk to us. And they loved it. No, it was so funny because like people would hear us and they'd be like, oh my God, you guys are so good. And we'd be like, oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Like, and oh my God, are you American? Like, no way. What are you doing here? And it would be this whole thing. They would like ask us about our trip. And it was, I guess that a lot of them were inspired by the fact that we just took this big risk. And of course we're sitting here going like, oh my God, this is terrifying. What are we going to do? And, from their perspective, it was so cool. And what ended up happening is we met all these people through this, like just busking on the streets. And so like pretty much everywhere that we stayed for the next 2.5 months, because we ended up actually extending our trip.
Nice.
Because it works out so well. Yeah. That we were like, oh my God, this is good. We should keep going. So it was literally just people that we met on the street that either gave us a place to stay or would hook us up with gigs, which in retrospect is probably like really risky because
Right.
there's, we were a bunch of dumb, like early 20, like 23, 24, 25, maybe not even quite there. Just like trying to make it happen, And so anyway, at the end of all this, this really cool thing happened where it ended up, we got booked for this festival, and it was like a college festival at, it was like a 5 or 10,000 like expected. So, and which is a lot, for a small band like us, especially. And, it was really dope. We ended up getting, asked to be like a co-headliner for this festival.
What?
It was nuts. And of
That's
course,
awesome.
right. So it was just me and PK, but we like wanted to do full band for this show. So we
Right.
ended up also like meeting, some like random, musicians throughout our travels. This one guy named Tomas, shout out my brother Tomas on the drums.
Hey.
We met him in Manchester. And then we met Ed, and I forget where we met Ed. Was Ed in Leeds maybe? We spent a lot of time in Northern England because Northern England, this is just a little side note story. Northern England is, in my experience anyway, like culturally a lot more similar to like the Midwest and like the good parts of the South of the US. And the south of England is more like the northeast of the US. So like London, Bristol, is it Bristol? Or maybe I'm thinking of Brighton. The southern cities basically are much more like, New York or like Philly or Pittsburgh or
So
something.
why didn't you guys stay down in the South?
In the
that
South?
sounds like optimal. Like New York is.
Right, you'd think so. Well, first of all, because London is like New York in that like you can meet a lot of people, but it's so like convoluted and it's also really expensive. So just traveling around, finding places to stay in that area was a lot more expensive. But honestly, I think what kept us up north was just that most of the people we were meeting were up there. And like our first city was Manchester, which is the northern, more northern, and a lot closer
Right.
to Leeds and Sheffield.
Right.
And so like when we were in Manchester, we were about a week there, I think, and then we met this girl on like our first night who's like, oh yeah, I have a brother in Sheffield, like go stay with him when you go to Sheffield.
That's
And
awesome.
we're like, okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, and then we met other people, just piece after piece. So that's honestly kind of what ended up giving us our routing. Like it was completely unplanned. There was no like, oh, we have to be here at this time besides the Blackburn show.
Yeah. That's a young person's thing.
A young person's thing?
What you guys were doing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
That's really hard for like most people, like most musicians to do.
yeah, because most musicians first of all, don't have like financial backing like we did for that
Right.
for that trip. So like,
Oh yeah, that's right.
I mean, it was our money, but it wasn't our money.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like we
Had an angel investor.
yeah, and the way it was structured worked, in our favor as far as like making things happen, but like it was still there was a responsibility we felt to not like blow it all, but
Of course, yeah.
but yeah, definitely like we were very lucky. We were very lucky to be in the position we were in. It would have been a lot harder if we were just like, working out of change in our pocket, but
right. Yeah.
but the thing is like really busking is what got us through a lot of that too, just like using earnings from that to just like
That's
buy
awesome.
food and stuff. Yeah. And yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I'm just thinking back on it. I'm just like, we got there, we had nothing, and we ended our trip there with that, like basically co-headlining a festival, which was insane.
That's a success story right there.
Yeah.
That is wild.
It is. Yeah. Little victories happen every once in a while, guys.
Yeah.
It's not all so bad.
So this is kind of like, I guess, kind of wild for me.
Mhm.
It like definitely was a big part of my life.
Mhm.
For like, it still is. Like, I still know these people or whatever. So when I was like 14, my best friend in high school, one of my best friends, I really had like a very small group of the core best friends. There was 3 of us. So one of my best friends, Hannah, I was really good friends with her family. And her mom sent me this thing that like our local amphitheater, kind of near the house or near where we lived, was doing basically kind of like a rock and roll fantasy camp, but
Mhm.
like rock and roll fantasy camp, the official one is like thousands of dollars to do.
Right.
This one was like $35.
Sick.
And it was like this band that was coming through, and they were called like the World Classic Rockers. That was
Mhm.
like their thing.
The world classic
That's
rockers.
them.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's
but
nice.
like basically it was like like just random members from like big bands,
Mhm,
like it was
mhm.
it was never like the
lead
singer or like,
right.
the person that everybody knew, but like it was like the guitar player from Steppenwolf and like the original drummer from Journey. And
That's huge.
yeah, and like the singer that was Santana, and I remember the guitar player was from Leonard Skinner, and so just like
Mhm.
random whatever. So anyway, I like auditioned. I like made a YouTube video. It's pretty cool. I bet it's still on YouTube. I covered Freeze All Right Now.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, which was like
now.
yeah, and I picked that one, I think, because I knew I could play it note for note and like
Mhm.
make it sound good.
Yeah.
So anyway, like I like passed the audition and I was like really excited. And getting there, I was super excited because I'm like a huge fan of Journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, ooh, I'm gonna like take my Journey album and like get it signed.
Yeah,
and like
totally,
I was super
totally.
excited, and I'm like 14 and I'm like so excited to meet these people. So anyway, I get there and I realized like pretty much anybody who signed up was like let in. Like I wasn't special for like getting in. But what I did do that's insider secret, I've never told anybody this,
Ooh,
but
okay.
I had done my research.
Yeah. All
which
right.
is very me.
That is extremely you. Yeah.
And like I had seen like, they make everybody like take a solo over this like progression in the middle of that song Magic Carpet Ride.
Mhm,
Like, I like to dream. Yeah. Right
Yeah.
beneath the sound machine.
Hell yeah, it's a great song.
That song. And so there's a part in the middle of that song where the drums like really pick up and it does this like ga. Anyway, and then they did like a solo over it, right?
Nice. Yeah.
So I like saw other people doing that on YouTube. So I was like, I bet that's what they're gonna make us do.
Mm.
So I was like, I'm gonna make my solo sick.
Yep.
So like I put in every technique that I knew into this one solo. I like hybrid picked. I like tapped.
Yep.
I like
Yep.
didn't stay in like my typical like pentatonic improv scale. Like I started reaching out because basically it just stayed on E minor the whole time.
Oh yeah.
So I
there's a lot
started
you
doing
can,
some like modal experimentation. I didn't know that's what it was called, but I just started picking notes that sounded fancy.
adding in a C sharp here and there.
Yeah. And so anyway, I like pre-rehearsed this improv solo. And so like,
fucking genius, dude.
it's pretty smart, right?
Yeah,
because everybody else's solo because they hadn't prepared, right?
yeah.
Which you weren't supposed to prepare. Like I
Right.
kind of cheated. It was supposed to be improv. But like everybody else's solo was an improv solo. And my solo was like, like I've written this out note for note. I've practiced it for hours. And so of course everybody was like, wow, that was really, really good. Anyway, and so I thought I was a really hot shit, right? Like I'm 14. I'm like, ooh, they like me.
Yeah,
like I'm in the cool club now. And I remember like they did like a little luncheon where like we ate like ham sandwiches and like we're able to talk to them. And so, you know, I got to like talk to all of them and like, you know, it was fun. And anyway, what kind of came of that is like I played that night. Everybody loved it. I actually met tons of people that night because it was like an amphitheater show. So there was like 3,500 people there.
Wow. Yeah.
And like there are some people that still follow me to this day from that show.
From that show. Wow.
Yeah. And they're
that's
like,
cool.
yeah, we saw you when you were like little and like playing guitar with those people.
dope.
So like it definitely was an awesome thing. But even better, well, we went back to the hotel with them that night, my family, because they like invited us. But it was like kind of a weird hotel experience. So we just kind of left because like the people that we really wanted to like talk to and meet had like gone to bed, and like the other people were just getting like plastered drunk, and I was like 14, so like I couldn't really participate, so it was kind of lame.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, we went home. But then, so you know, when I signed up for the thing, they got my email. So like a couple weeks later, I get an email from like their tour manager. And oh, I wish I could remember his name because he was like this big, loud, boisterous New York guy, right? Like New
Classic.
York Italian
Yep.
guy. And anyway,
I'm gonna
he
make
like,
you a star.
oh, totally, yeah, but like big. He was
Yeah.
like a big guy. He
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
like
yeah.
a bouncer, you know?
Okay, or like a Dawn.
Yeah,
like of a
exactly.
family.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, exactly. Don Corleone. He was that guy. But, you know, he called and he was like, hey, like we really loved meeting her and her performance and everything. We're coming back to Atlanta and we're playing Atlanta Centennial Park, which is like midtown Atlanta. It's like where the Olympics happened in '96. It's
Right,
like
yeah.
a really,
It's a
really
big deal.
Yeah, it's a really big deal. So we were like so excited. We were like, this is it. Like, I'm gonna be a star now. And so anyway, like I practiced more and, you know, I was really excited. Like we got like new outfits for me. You know, it was like my mom was really excited about this. I love you, Mom. It was a good time.
Hell yeah, dude.
And so we get there and like they gave us our own bus. So it was like my mom, my
damn.
brother, my sister, everybody wanted to come to this one, obviously, because it was like cool. It had a cool factor. And so, you know, like we spent all day on the bus and like, you know, got to talk to everybody and it was just really, really fun. And then we played the show, which, you know, they filmed and put on YouTube. And, you know, that was really, really cool. And it was kind of funny. So after that, I never heard from him again, which was obviously pretty devastating because like you get your hopes up in moments like that where you're like,
Right.
this is my big break.
This is where it's gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah. And you don't
And
realize that like, no.
there's a lot that goes into it that's more than that, right?
Yeah, right.
Like
right.
you could play, like honestly, at the level that I'm at, I could play Madison Square Garden tomorrow and then still play my local pub
For
on
sure.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Like that's
yeah.
just the way that it goes.
Yeah.
Like even huge things aren't going to change it all for you.
No.
Like it takes a series of huge things.
It does. And
Yeah.
and usually a team.
Right, totally. To keep getting the huge things.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so anyway, you know, and so I mean, I didn't go into like a depression or anything, but like, you know, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well that was fun. And it became like a thing of the past. Well, like a couple years ago now, this was before COVID, and I have some really I have another fun story after this one that just
Okay.
came to mind. It's from this same cruise, but I went on a music cruise and it was like a lottery cruise, right? So
Right.
it wasn't like, you know how you go on like music cruises and it's actually like, you know, people are there to like hear music and, you know, whatever. But this was not that. These are like people who like won a cruise by doing like the Georgia lottery or whatever.
Right.
So the crowd was very different.
Very mixed.
But
yeah.
it was so cool. So like we get on the boat and like the first people to play are those guys.
Whoa.
I know.
And you didn't
so-
know they were going to be there.
No. Well,
Wow.
I don't think I did. I may have. I don't remember. But like it was cool to like see them again. And because I was playing on the boat too, as a musician, I was able to go backstage and like they remembered me and like I played with them again. And like that was
Aw.
really fun.
That's cool.
And so like, you know, I got to hang out with them because, you know, when you're on a cruise ship, like you're stuck. So like I got to hang out with them on like a way more personal level.
Yeah, like every day,
for like a
right.
week, and like we would eat breakfast together, and so like it kind of did come full circle,
Yeah.
really and truly.
Yeah, you definitely need to reach out to them again.
Yeah, that
You
would be
should.
really fun. Okay, then that same cruise, this is a crazy story, and it's gonna make me probably look bad, but I think it's funny. So
Sick.
So also on this same cruise, this lottery cruise, right? Kenny Loggins was playing.
Okay.
And
Yep,
I
yeah,
got
yep.
to meet Kenny Loggins, and he was really nice and like sweet. And I love Kenny Loggins' music. Like he's way deeper than Footloose. So if Footloose is the only song you know, like you should listen to more Kenny Loggins because he's really good.
Yeah, I don't really know too much of his stuff, to be
He's
honest.
really good. Like
Okay.
his songs are really cool. And so basically, because it was Kenny's night, right? And it was a port show, which basically means like Kenny's not on the boat the whole time. He flies into the Bahamas, gets on the boat and sings while you're docked.
Yeah.
And then he goes back into the Bahamas and flies to wherever he's going next.
Right. Okay.
So like he doesn't stay on the boat. So we're thinking like, oh yeah, this is like Kenny's night to play. So my brother and I, right, this was when I was in the band with my brother and family. We were like, well, it's our day off. So we're going to go into the Bahamas and like have fun. So we went into the Bahamas and like went to a bar. It was like, and this
Nice.
bartender, like, oh, he loved me. And I'm pretty sure it was just because I was like blonde haired and
Yeah.
like, you know, whatever. So he just started giving us free drinks. He was like, Bohemian rum, man. Like, oh, like it's on me. And he was drinking with us. So I know he
Oh,
was
yeah.
getting trashed. But we drank a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot. We were taking like double shots
Oof.
and like we got like a lot of them.
Yeah.
So like, you know,
were
we
toasty.
hear the music start, you know, and we're like, like let's get back to the boat. Like we don't want to miss the concert. So anyway, we go back to the boat and we're like loving the concert. We're backstage, which just automatically makes you feel cooler than
Always.
you are.
Yeah.
And anyway, so like the concert promoter, the lady that hired everybody to be on the ship, Kenny and us, came up to me and she was like, hey, like, are you going to be able to play after Kenny's done? Because we kind of want the party to keep going. Like, I know I didn't tell you until now, but like, everybody's out here and it would be really weird if like the show was over, or really sad if the show was over and everybody left the pool deck because you know there was no music. She's like, so y'all should get up and do something. And I'm like really drunk.
Oh no.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't remember how old I was, but I don't think I was 21.
Yeah. Right.
So like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was not a good situation. So
Right.
thankfully there was another singer on the ship, and I am gonna name her because she saved my butt. Her name was Jennifer Corday, and
Shout out to
she's
Jennifer.
she lives in Los Angeles, I think. Thank you, Jennifer. She was like, well, I'll sing most of the songs and we can just do like Zeppelin covers and it will be super fun. And it ended up being super, super fun.
Yeah.
And like just had a great time. But it was mostly because like I didn't have to talk.
Right. You could just play the guitar. Yeah.
I could be a Jimmy Page. I can do Jimmy Page all day and be like toasty. I can't be Robert Plant and be toasty. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, it ended up being really, really fun. But that was kind of crazy. You know,
that is wild.
you know, just
That's
like
really cool though.
that had never happened to me. Like, and obviously, like I try not to like really drink before I play, like especially like that amount.
Oh yeah.
So like, you
Yeah.
know, that was, you know, just craziness.
Yeah.
And, you know, kind of my first experience with that.
Well, everybody kind of has to go through that too a little bit. Speaking of
Right.
just like, you know, like maybe having a little bit too much before a gig. Like I've always been pretty good about it too, but there's been a couple times where like, maybe I shouldn't have had that last shot.
Well, it's really easy to do too because people bring them to you.
That's
And I listened to
Mhm.
another podcast recently. It was on Glennon Doyle's podcast, which is called We Can Do Hard Things, and she was talking to the Indigo Girls, who are also from Atlanta.
Yep.
I feel like most people know that, but she was talking about, I think it was Amy, who was talking about it's so easy when you're doing like especially smaller shows to get used to like everybody brings you drinks.
Yep.
Like it's part of the experience.
It really is.
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
really easy. Like you really have to get to that point where you realize like, okay, like I need to, just because they bring them doesn't mean I should drink all of them, which
Yeah.
is really hard to do when people are like, oh, like I bought this for you and I know that this is what you like. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's like
yeah.
a sweet thing, and it's really easy to get carried away. But
Yeah.
you really have to be careful with that because I've had experiences with that and it's not good and it's super embarrassing. I mean, not that like anything really bad happened, but I'm embarrassed by anything. You know, so like, even if I'm like a little weird, I'm like, man, I shouldn't have done that. But,
Yeah.
You know, so you do have to be really careful from that, and it's just rampant, you
Yeah,
know. And
yeah.
so I'm sure there are more people that have way more embarrassing stories than I do about that. But
Oh, I know some people. Yeah, that
yeah.
have done some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but oddly enough, I've never really witnessed anyone being like just totally ripped at a show. At least if I did, like I can't recall it for whatever reason. Like, has it happened? I'm sure it has, but
yeah,
I just can't remember. Like,
I mean, honestly, I probably have and didn't know it.
maybe that's what
You
it
know what
is.
I mean? Because like
yeah.
a lot of people, like especially if they're like true alcoholics,
Mhm.
like they can be ripped and like you don't know quite as
you
much.
can hide it. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
well. Yeah,
I feel like we definitely need to do like a part 2 to this.
yeah.
Because like we've really like, I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Oh, for sure. Well,
You
like I
know?
said, like there's, I mean, so many stories of like touring. Maybe the next one could be more about like tour specific,
Right.
you know, and talking about that stuff. Cause yeah,
And I do want to say, like, regardless of our experiences, positive or negative,
Mhm.
like we're still out here doing it.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
We're
Yeah. Mhm.
living for the next amazing experience.
Yeah.
And terrible experiences are just going to be part of anything you do, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, this job especially is like, involves meeting a lot of different kinds of people and people when they're not at their best, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So, of course, we're going to have some negative experiences, but for the most part, we always have positive experiences. And
Yeah.
even the crazy negative ones, in retrospect, are kind of funny and like,
Oh, yeah.
like I'm so glad that happened. You
they
know?
they build your character, you know, it's because you have to go through that stuff. Like you said,
Right.
you have no choice.
Right. And yeah, so I definitely think this is going to be kind of a series.
Mhm.
So definitely look out for more of these in the future. This was a really fun episode.
Yeah.
And we definitely can't wait to share more experiences with you in the future. But thank you so much for listening to this episode of Sex, Drugs, and Disappointment. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave us a review and connect with us more on Instagram and TikTok at SDD Podcast. Each episode is also available in video format on YouTube. And don't forget,
Have fun, don't do too much, and it's gonna happen.